Hi, I'm John F. Allen.
And I'm R.J. Sullivan.
And we're the Two Towers.
So jumping ahead to the end, I want to say that I loved Wanda's final look in the final battle. I thought that was a perfect blend of something very modern and very 2021 comic books, Marvel movie sleek, but yet a callback to her old look with the headgear and such. I thought it just looked. I thought it was a perfect blend of the two, in especially in the sense. So let's face it, the Scarlet Witch costume is it's easy on the eyes. It's something that a lot of fans have wanted to see, and I think that they had this fine line between, well, this would look kind of silly, but people really want to see it, and I thought kind of playing it for a goof in this episode was a good move. But then I actually genuinely liked what they did when we got to episode 8 and we saw her in her actual gear. I thought it looked extremely good. The only other thing I wanted to say about these 3 episodes before we go on to the last part is it was just fun to watch Facebook just day to day, watching people turn around on it as more things were revealed, as it became more the show that people were expecting. How it went from like the worst abomination and possibly the worst series ever that Marvel's ever put out to, turning now it's like the very best thing that Marvel's ever done. And isn't this such a great thing? And it just makes me laugh, John. It just does.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of fickleness going on with regards to people and their reactions to this series. And I think that it started to turn around, like I said, with episode 4, because then everybody and their mama was talking about this series and like, oh man, did you see that? And then all the old comic heads were like, wow, that's a deep cut. That's a throwback, and then all of these speculations started to be compounded. And
yeah, and I think the weekly episode format lends itself to that.
Yes.
Where people just can't help themselves. But I feel like, it's 8 weeks long. You're sticking with it. Just be where you are, as Linda likes to say. Just let it play out, see where it goes, and then come to a decision, when you've got to the end. And that's how I took it week by week. I'm like, I'm not gonna get too carried away with trying to second guess it. I'm not gonna like push it along, because I believe that even in the first 3 episodes, I think the experience, it's part of the experience. Just let it play. It's all right. I think it's just been interesting. I suppose I think you and I grew up in a time when stories were told at a different pace, and,
yeah.
People want their stuff and they want it now.
Right.
But I was glad to see when things turned around and you gave the show the time to present, no pun intended, present its vision, do it the way it wanted to do it. And it ended up being worth it. And I think by the time we got to episode 6, it was pretty clear that the show was in pretty good hands. And even though I don't feel it 100% stuck the ending, we'll get there. I feel like it was started out a solid show, it stayed a solid show, and it ended a solid show. It just did things a little bit differently, and not only do we have to allow that, we have to encourage it. Last thing I think anyone really wants is for the same experience over and over and over again. I think we really should let these things, let the creators play, and they did, and that's what I really like about this show. It gives me it makes me excited to see what they're going to do, and we're not going to be retreading the same stuff over and over again, because I think the show does some very interesting things at the end and some unexpected things, but we'll get there. So let's talk about the finish.
Yes. One more thing. The claymation commercial in episode 6, the Yo Magic Yogurt, has this little kid who's stranded on a desert island in the middle of the ocean, and he doesn't have anything to eat. And some shark comes up and says, "Yo Magic Yogurt," and gives it to the kid to eat. But the kid can't get the yogurt pack open and ends up, basically shriveling up and starving and dying. And
that was so messed up.
Right. But, I'm one of those types of people that I have to admit on my part in this, I love to speculate. And especially when I see that there are Easter eggs for deep cut stuff from the comics. And then I'm seeing all of the people who we shall refer to as comic muggles, because they have not read the comics, and their introduction to Marvel comics has been through the MCU alone. That, they're talking about, Agatha Harkness, Agnes is not Agatha Harkness. That's just too on the nose. And I'm like, you're not paying attention, bub. You really aren't. And you don't know the comics. So you might want to sit these things out, and these were some internet personalities who, I respect and admire, who were coming up with ideas I knew were wrong. And, it's not about being right or wrong or whatever, but I knew, as a comic book fan, that I knew Kevin Feige would not just give us something for no reason. And getting into episode 7, breaking the fourth wall, which is another TV show trope, which goes into the time period for the setting is the late 2000s. And we've got Malcolm in the Middle style intro. We've got Malcolm in the Middle style dialogue where the characters are breaking the fourth wall. You see Wanda talking directly to the audience. She wants a day for herself. She has Agnes, who agrees to babysit the boys. Wanda sees various parts of her house changing and is unable to control it. Vision wakes up to find that the sword agents inside the boundary are now members of a circus, which this plays on how the people in Sword are envisioned by Wanda, and basically the viewers themselves. It was a circus. It was like they didn't know their butts from a hole in the ground. Hayward wasn't.
Yes.
He was a complete asshole, and they called him a dick in the show, so that's why I said that. Darcy did anyway. So that being said, he lied. He showed them footage of Wanda apparently breaking in and stealing Vision's body, which did not happen. And he was doing that so that he could misdirect them about what his ulterior motives were, which we'll get into in just a moment. But I knew he was slimy from the very beginning. And some other internet personalities were like, no, he's just a butthead. I didn't think he was a main villain, but I knew he was a much more dark and evil, conniving character than what they wanted to give him credit for. And I could tell. I mean, look, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know things 100%, but I have a deep intuition when it comes to comic book stuff, because I've read these comics, not just once, but several times in my life. So I kind of have an idea about how these things go. Anyway, outside of Westview, Monica and Jimmy meet with loyal Sword personnel to obtain a vehicle that should be able to cross the barrier. First of all, she was telling Jimmy and Darcy that she knew a guy. Now, a lot of people made a big hoopla about the engineer. Who could it be? Is it Reed Richards? Is it Adam Brashear? I was hoping that it would be Adam Brashear, because I want the character to be introduced in the MCU. It was not. But then now they're saying that they think that it was the woman who was at the meet. I don't think so. It didn't confirm one way or the other if it was or wasn't her. But given the fact that the pronoun she used was him and guy over and over again, it makes me believe it's somebody out, that we haven't met yet. Or if it is someone we've met, they haven't been revealed yet, and they probably won't be until Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. That being said, we have Monica, who is trying to get this vehicle through the hex. It is unsuccessful. Darcy has warned her that going through the barrier as many times as she has is changing her DNA on a molecular level. Again, another TV personalities or talk show personalities were saying, oh, well, this is just a medical thing. No, it's not, because I know about radiation, and radiation does not change you like that on a molecular level, changing you like that just by crossing through it. Before it would do any of that, it would basically infect your cells. And that's not what was said. So we knew that Monica was going through some type of change if we were paying attention. And I surmised that she was going to be getting her powers if she went through that barrier again. And lo and behold, I was right. And so, she goes through the barrier. She realizes she has these abilities that she didn't have before, because going through the barrier as many times as she has changed her on a molecular level down to her DNA. Monica confronts Wanda. Wanda's like, what are you doing here? Wanda attacks Monica. And when she attacks her, she realizes that Monica has changed, that she has powers now. And it was one of those superhero landings that Monica made. And that was just like, when I was hooting at the TV, I was like, yes, now we're getting to this. I was all excited. And then just so happens that here comes Agnes, who says that Monica should leave, and takes Wanda back to her house, and come to discover that the boys are nowhere to be found. She imprisons Wanda in the basement and reveals that she is Agatha Harkness, and that, she is a witch, and that she is trying to discover how Wanda was able to create this barrier and was able to alter reality the way in which she did. And she also reveals that she had been interfering with Wanda. She knew from the very beginning she wasn't under Wanda's spell. She was playing along and manipulating things, including sending the Pietro imposter, and that she actually killed the dog. Now, there's an important commercial in this episode that deals with a antidepressant called the Nexus. In the comics, the Nexus is a place that can converge out to various timelines, various dimensions in the multiverse. It's basically a place where you can get to anywhere, anytime, any dimension, so forth and so on. And I thought that was interesting. That's going to definitely show up later on in Doctor Strange 2. I can guarantee you that. In episode 8, we're taken back to 1693, and we're watching as a coven of witches led by Evanora attempt to kill Agatha for practicing dark magic. She turns the tables on them and drains them of their life forces, and she is in a battle with her mother, who is the head of the coven, and she says she'll be good. The mother doesn't believe her, so she ends up killing her mother. But before she does, the mother's energy forms a crown of sorts on her head. A lot of people didn't catch that. That was a precursor to the type of headdress that that Wanda wears as the Scarlet Witch. And then we also learn we learned that Wanda is controlling Westview and forces her to relive key moments of her life. Agatha learns that Wanda has had magical abilities since she was a child, which were later amplified by the Mind Stone. And she has always enjoyed watching sitcoms, which explains why the first 3 episodes, especially, and all the other subsequent episodes is handled like a sitcom, because that's what she was reverting to. After the blip, Wanda's visited Sword because she was trying to recover Vision's body. If you don't remember, she she was zapped. So she was, she comes back, and when she does, 5 years have passed, and Vision is nowhere to be found. And she's looking for his body because she realized that he was killed twice by Thanos. And so she goes to the Sword headquarters. Hayward refuses to let her bury him. Unable to feel any life in Vision, she drove to a lot in Westview, which Vision had purchased for them to start a life together. In a fit of grief, she manifested a house on the lot and a new version of Vision, which came from residual energy she had from the Mind Stone, as well as her own ability to warp and reality, and extended this hex across the entire town. She was able to control all of the people in here in this hex, even to the outskirts of town. This goes to show you how powerful Wanda is. Agatha concludes that Wanda possesses a legendary form of magic called chaos magic, which in the comics she does, and dubs her the Scarlet Witch, which is a title for beings who are able to wield the chaos magic. Now, in the comics, chaos magic comes about from a elder god called Chthon. And Chthon was the one who, through the Darkhold, was able to create all of the supernatural creatures like vampires, werewolves, and so forth. This is all precursor for the MCU introducing supernatural characters such as Dracula, Blade, Werewolf by Night, The Living Mummy, Man-Thing, and Ghost Rider, and several more from the 70s that I hope that they bring into play in the MCU. But if you didn't read those comics, you wouldn't know those types of things. So I don't hold it against anybody. I understand. But when I'm watching this, I know what's going on. I know where they're reaching to, and this isn't news to me. So in mid-credit scene of this episode 8, which was titled Previously On, we watch Hayward reactivate the Vision's body. How he did this was that drone that they sent through that Wanda brought back to them had residual energy from her magic. They siphoned that energy and they reanimated the Vision, reprogramming him for their purposes. From the very beginning, Hayward wanted to use the Vision as a weapon. I knew this because of the way that he was talking. And some people theorized that, Wanda took his body. No, it turns out Hayward had the body all along and was trying to reactivate him because he wanted to use him as a weapon. And now we see the reassembled body, original body of Vision, but he's all white. And a lot of people didn't realize that was the spectral Vision. This happened in the comics. He was disassembled. When he was reassembled, he was white, all white. His body was all white, and he was not the same Vision as Wanda fell in love with, which is going to be played out in this series. He was Vision's body, but he did not have the emotions and the memories of the emotions that Vision had when he was first created and that he developed in his relationship with Wanda. So he and Wanda during this time were also members of the West Coast Avengers, which was an offshoot of the Avengers located, of course, on the West Coast, along with Hawkeye and a couple of other characters, Wonder Man and Tigra, and who were introduced later. Hopefully they'll be introduced, at least Wonder Man will be introduced in the MCU. I'm ready to see Simon Williams. They hinted at this because there were some little Easter eggs about his brother, the Grim Reaper, who was a major villain of the Avengers back in the day. I don't think Kevin Feige is just throwing this stuff out just to be random. I think that there's a deeper meaning to it. We shall see. The last episode, the series finale, and it was aptly titled the series finale because that's usually how the series finale in sitcoms are advertised. Agatha attempts to take Wanda's chaos magic, but is interrupted by the Vision, who tries to kill Wanda before her conditional vision intervenes. So the spectral Vision, who has been programmed by Hayward, shows up and is ordered to kill Wanda until the Vision that she created intervenes, and the two Visions are waging a fight across the skies of Westview. Meanwhile, Agatha frees the residents of Westview from Wanda's control, and who are pleading with Wanda because basically they don't want to be under control anymore. They convince her to open the barrier so they can leave. She stops when Vision and the twins begin to disintegrate, but not before Hayward and the Sword agents start to enter the breach. And Monica frees Pietro, who is actually someone named Ralph Boner. And a lot of people were upset with the whole joke, Boner is a last name, from Agatha's control, and then helps the twins stop the Sword. Vision restores the spectral Vision, the white Vision's memories, and he takes off. Okay. So what we know from this last episode is that that Vision's not dead anymore. Vision is back. He's just not the Vision with any memories from before. When his memories were restored, he's just not the same because of the things that he's went through. A lot of people thought that the Vision that Wanda created was going to merge into the Vision, and then there was going to be this happily ever after type thing. I didn't buy that because I knew that they were going to go darker with Wanda's character. They had to, going into Doctor Strange 2. Right. So basically, Wanda places magical rooms around the barrier that prevent Agatha from using her magic and traps her because Agatha is thinking she's got the upper hand. So when Wanda puts all of her power into Agatha, she can't use it because of the rooms, which is something that she had done to Wanda in her basement when she trapped her there for the short time that she did. So she basically was the cause of her own undoing in that. And so then Wanda traps Agatha in the Agnes persona and says goodbye to Vision and the twins as the barrier collapses because she knows she can't keep it up. She knows it's not right. And then we go into the mid-credit scene where Hayward is arrested. Monica is informed by a scroll that a friend of her mother's wants to meet. We know that friend, who she points up, the scroll points up to the sky. What's in the sky? In the sky is the space station that we see Nick Fury on at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. It's Nick Fury. Nick Fury is an old friend of her mother's from Captain Marvel film. We can put this together. A lot of people were like, well, that's not the Darkhold, the book that Agatha had. Yes, it was. It was the Darkhold. It is what is going to introduce the supernatural characters to the MCU. It was created by Chthon. A lot of people don't know this. I get it. Again, they're comic book muggles. They don't know.
Well, yeah, and I didn't know that. I'm excited to hear that is what it is because, as you know, I like their take on Dracula and the Wolfman and the rest. I look forward to that, but I did not realize that there was an explanation that tied that together so specifically.
Right. And then you see Wanda in the very post-credit scene. The last scene is the post-credit scene, and you see her in this mountain range. It looks like something from Sound of Music almost. It's like really pretty and whatnot. Well, a lot of people don't realize that that's Wundagore. And Wundagore is a mountain range in the Marvel comics, which was where actually Wanda was raised. And she was raised by a genetically altered cow. Yeah, I know this is going to sound really trippy.
Oh, yeah, I am aware of that.
Right. And So there's a lot of going on with the character. There's
probably more Easter eggs than anything anyone's going to need to know is that as far as that goes. But yeah, it's
right.
good that they're tipping their hat.
And so you've got a lot of things that they are going to be opening up when it comes to these characters. And the new characters that are going to come to fruition. You've got the High Evolutionary, who was a geneticist named Herbert Wyndham, and he was basically responsible, or that mountain range was responsible for a lot of other characters coming to fruition in Marvel Comics, such as the father of Jessica Drew, Jonathan Drew. He got the uranium that he used to give his daughter powers to become Spider-Woman later on from that mountain range. So there's a whole lot of things that they're building upon by introducing these things. And a lot of people wouldn't know that unless you read the comics. I get it. But that's what was so exciting for me about these last 3 episodes, was that they are setting this up to expand the MCU in ways that will go on. And they've already talked about it. This will go on for decades, kids. This is not just for the next couple of years. They're going to be telling these stories as long as we're going to the theaters or watching it on Disney Plus, whichever is the case, for decades to come. RJ and I will be on Social Security. We'll have grandkids by the time they get done with this, and they'll still have stories to tell. Trust me. Yeah. There's a whole lot of stories left to tell, and I'm so excited about it. It's crazy that it took 45 years from the time I started reading comic books for this to come to fruition, but better late than never, I say. But one other thing, when we get to this cabin near the Wundagore Mountains, we see Wanda on the porch drinking something out of a cup. She goes inside, the tea kettle goes off, she's pouring herself some more, but then it goes into a back bedroom, and we see that there's an astral projection of Wanda in her full Scarlet Witch, outfit, and she is flipping through the Darkhold. And when she is reading, she hears her twins' voices calling for help. So that's when, as I said before, I knew, but it was beyond a shadow of a doubt at this point, that the twins are still alive somewhere, probably in this dark dimension. And those twins had to come from somewhere, because she actually gave birth to them in the series. So who was the father? Because we know it wasn't a biological exchange from Vision, since he's a synthezoid. So where did that come from? She has the ability to draw energy from other dimensions. And I think that she's either drawn the energy to create those children and some of the reality warping things that she's done from one of 3 characters. Mephisto is who everybody and their mother thought was going to be the main villain showing up at the end. That was not the case. I don't think it's going to be Mephisto. I think they're going to save him for something else if they use him in the MCU. Nightmare is a big possibility, because he is a favorite character that was going to be used in Doctor Strange 2 and could still show up. And then the other is Chthon, who basically is the elder god, like I mentioned before, who actually created the Darkhold. And at any rate, the energy that created those boys and created their souls is probably going to be from one of those 3 characters. We'll have to wait and see when Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness comes out. I can't wait. I'm hyped up for that. I'm hyped up for the Spider-Man 3 film. This concludes part 3 of our discussion and review of WandaVision. Tune in on Wednesday for part 4. And until then, Stay nerdy.
The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by OG Nerds, a new social media community dedicated to nerds of a certain age, 40 and over, although all are welcome. Members are encouraged to share articles and links on their favorite nerdy topics such as animation, anime, art, books, writing, comics, manga, movies, music, sports, tech, science, TV, video games, RPGs, and more. Be sure to visit them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by Showtime Cinema in Mooresville, Indiana. Their friendly staff is always willing to go the extra mile to make your movie-going experience an enjoyable and memorable one. Enjoy the comfort of their new cushioned seating in their spacious auditoriums, and while you're there, be sure to stop by the concession stand and purchase some popcorn where real butter topping is an option. They're located at 300 South Bridge Street in Mooresville, Indiana. We hope to see you at the movies.